doesn't tell it. Old maps of locomotive.
Hi, Jackie. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And though I picture chimney stacks, I'll never smell it.
I am Ron on
Or
Facebook Live.
taste the
Thank you for joining
anguish
us.
of the ones who got away. Your love had died, but you survived to dream a place that would be safe for all your kind. Then you awoke to find that Zion was a nightmare, and you're a prisoner of time in Palestine. Between the golden beaches and the river Jordan, a desert garden that they call the Holy Land. But if you spoke to Jesus, Moses, or Muhammad, this isn't quite the paradise that they had planned. How did this promised land of flowing milk and honey, where three religions knelt before one living God, become a place where flowing blood and foreign money, all the tank tracks where the gentle prophets trod, before they launched the jihad on the unbelievers, before they put the seed of Ishmael to the knife, before the massacre of Sabra and Shatia, before crusaders killed your kids then raped your wife. The God of love was high above, but here on earth the gods of hate were doing fine. And if you cannot yet forgive them nor forget them, you're still a prisoner of time in Palestine. That family farm that fed us 40 generations apparently was someone else's before that. Now somebody from a European nation says someone else's great-grandchildren want it back. So I must live beyond an artificial border with neighbors who prefer that I did not exist. They stole my olive orchard, then they stole the border. And when I struggle with them, I'm the terrorist. I had a baby, but the settler bullet killed it. I had a job, but now they cordoned off the town. I had a dream, but every time I try to build it, somebody else comes with a tank and knocks it down. A young man's pride, a suicide, a Jewish bride and bridegroom bleeding where they died. They're not much better than the Nazis. You're still a prisoner of time in Palestine. And if you thought that it was all about the Bible, get with the history of 1,000 years or two. It's very nice to know you're in the chosen people, till you discover why it is they've chosen you to be the scapegoat when the rich demand a cut back, the one to blame when people cannot get enough. And when it's not PC to use you for a punch bag, they'll very kindly let you be their boxing glove. And so some Jews go on to kick the Palestinians, because the rest of us have beaten up the Jews. And for those oil-ship dictators, it's convenient that they've an enemy in Israel to use. So long as Abraham's descendants are divided, so long as grief between them builds a ghetto wall, so long that camouflage and cover are provided for what's the greatest daylight robbery of all. The praying presidents who heat the seed of power, the fossil traders who pollute the corridors, the road of corpses laid from Tel Aviv to Basra. Keep up the pressure. pleasure on that petrol pump of ours. A fresh excuse for each abuse of terror and of counter-terror in our time. How shall we change the climate globally for freedom while there are prisoners of poverty and crime in Palestine? Support their right to be a nation and hold a homeland open for the Jewish soul. The son of David in his armor plate in Zion, Goliath's daughter reaching for another stone. They're gonna need a bit of help to tame the lion. It isn't fair to leave them struggling there alone. The God of love may be above, but here on earth is where we make the love divine. And when we see how each is captive to the other, we'll free the prisoners and family of mine in Palestine. Shalom, 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 Havari, Shalom, Havari.
Wow, what an amazing song that was. Wow. Hi, Farid, welcome, and Naomi, and welcome to Imran Nirban on Facebook and other people who will pop up, I'm sure, as you know, we move along. That was really an amazing song. I found that by accident yesterday, and I want to play it, and I want to find if the lyrics are transcribed anywhere, because, and more about the author. Have you ever heard that song? Anybody? No.
No, I just Googled it, and it's an English anarchist folk band, they said.
Ah.
So pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know when it was, no idea when it was written or
I don't either. Yeah, but it's a really great song. The lyrics are awesome. And something else, a friend of mine in Jordan, Stefan, I think you met Stefan Farid when you were, he writes for the Jordan Times. He's Serbian and Jordanian. Anyhow, he sent me an amazing video this morning of an interview on Frontline, the TV program Frontline, Jacqueline Rose. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yeah,
she's a wonderful interviewer, and she had Shlomo Sand and Avri Shriel, or whatever his name is, I can't remember, two Jewish revisionist historians on. And I, you know, you've probably everybody's read Shlomo Sand's The Invention of the Jewish People, which was one of the major transforming books that I've read in my life. Actually, I'm responsible for the first one to get into Jordan, because I was in the airport in Paris and I saw it in the bookstore in the French version, because Shlomo Sand is French, is his first language. He's originally French, and so he published it first in Hebrew, then in French. So I bought it in French, but my French is not good enough to read that book. And when I was alert, I signed up for an alert as soon as it got translated into English. And then I went to Books at Cafe in Amman, and I said, look, guys, as soon as this comes out, you must order it and call me immediately. And I was the first one to get the book when it got in the English version of Amman. And the interview was quite interesting because both of them were viciously attacked by people in the audience, typical. But it was extremely interesting. So I think what I'm going to do is devote one program to the whole notion of revisionist history of the Zionist story, because I think this is very important for us to have enough factual information and factual data when we have to just debate things with people, to understand that we don't have to invent the wheel, that these wonderful historians have been doing this excellent history, revisionist history, and it's very important to propagate it the best we can. So I'm going to do an interview about it. If you know any historians who might want to join us, that would be great. Anyone who has competency in Israeli-Palestinian history, it'd be great to have them talk to us about it. But I've been reading about it for years, and Shlomo Sand, it's the first time I've seen him in person in an interview. Have you ever seen him in person, Shlomo Sand? He's very cool. His English is terrible, but he's kind of a really interesting guy, and his affect is amazing because he expects to be attacked, continually, and he's like Mr. Cool. He's really, he's got the whole thing down. He knows how to protect himself. So that was something I was very happy to share. But anyhow, what I want to do now is start out before more people come on. I start out going over what the most recent events are in contemporary life in Israel. And I found this amazing article on Haaretz that I'm going to share with you. I don't have a subscription to Haaretz. I probably should get one because I'm always quoting from it. It's a great source of information, and liberal Israelis. But I just resist getting the subscription so far. But do you have a subscription to Haaretz? Anybody?
No. It's a gray area with the boycott.
Yeah.
I read it for free. Yeah. I think, okay, it's news and I want to find out what's happening, but I don't know that I'd give it money under the boycott conditions.
That's my situation. Anyhow, it was a pretty interesting article on today that I noticed was we'll go down here. They're talking about Israel's Red Sea port of Eilat, next target for a Houthi drone strike, which is across from Jordan. So it's something I'm concerned about. But anyhow, there's some good articles, but this is the one that I want to bring to your attention. This article is from veterans who confess that there's a mass Palestinian grave at a popular Israeli beach. The Israeli veterans of the 1948 battle at Tatour village finally come clean after the mass killing of Arabs that took place after the village's surrender. Now, I've never been here. Farid, have you ever been to this beach?
No.
No, neither have I. So the only beach I went to was the one in Tel Aviv. Anyhow, so here's the article, just the beginning of it. I don't have full access to the article because I don't have a subscription, but anyhow, starts out by, and it was just published 2 days ago. They silenced it, the former combat soldier Moshe Diamond says, trying to be spare with his words. It mustn't be told, it could cause a whole scandal. I don't want to talk about it, but it happened. What can you do? It happened. 22 years have passed since the furor erupted over the account of what occurred during the conquest by Israeli troops of the village of Tatour, north of Caesarea on the Mediterranean coast. in the War of Independence. The controversy sprang up in the wake of a master's thesis written by an Israeli graduate student named Theodore Katz that contained testimony about atrocities perpetrated by the Alexandroni Brigade against Arab prisoners of war. And unfortunately, I can't read the rest of the article, but certainly there'll be other sources of information about it, but another atrocity. What's interesting is we had an interview a few weeks ago with a veteran of 1948, also very confessing to atrocities that he did as an IDF soldier, and actually feeling guilty about the house that he was living in because it was stolen, from Arab residents. So before they all die off, I think many of them are coming clean as they face the end of their lives, that maybe their conscience is bothering them, and before they meet their maker, they're ready to fess up to the atrocities that they committed. So that's, I think, pretty interesting. Another source of information for us this morning will be the electronic intifada that I have here on today's news, the electronic intifada. I have this weird thing going on with my screen in Gmail where I have these blue streaks across it. I have no idea why, but there's two articles at the top. A second court victory for Palestine action. So this is pretty interesting. The activists that we celebrated in England, the British blocked that a drone maker site, and he ran off. And England, I have to say, is really doing great, much better in America with direct action. So good for you, Brits. Well, you have your wobblies, you have the tradition of the wobblies, and many anarchist protests in England. And I have to commend the British for standing up so well. And now it looks like we may get a new government after all. Boris baby's in big trouble for his parties in Downing Street. So we'll see where it leads. Do you think he'll get thrown out, Naomi? You think
I don't know. He's got this report coming out from the top civil servant. She's in the ethics committee, head of the ethics, I guess. But she's, his employee. He's her boss. So I don't know. I wouldn't put anything past him. And to be honest, it might actually be better for Labour if he stays in, because the public feeling about him would be against him would be so great. Whereas if they get a new leader, it might refresh them in the eyes of the public. So
somebody who was reasonable. Yeah, that would
be. Someone who was competent, at least,
Well, good luck. We're watching closely from across the pond. Anyhow, so this article states that activists celebrated another victory against Israeli drone giant Elbit. These are the people they threw out already on Thursday as a British court dropped all charges against the activists. Birmingham's Magistrate Council ordered that 3 activists go free, despite charges of criminal damage, resisting arrest, and a charge related to suspected aggravated trespass. The Palestinian Action campaigners had targeted an Elbit landlord, Vince Property Management in Birmingham, in the English Midlands. This is the second time this has come to trial. Now I'm getting red streaks. This is so weird. Last month, protesters had done what they did in Elbit, and they were found not guilty of criminal charges. The activists in the first trial successfully argued that damage they caused to Elbit's Shenstone factory near Birmingham was proportionate action to halt the factory's involvement in Israeli war crimes against Palestinians. So that's a pretty interesting argument. Wow.
It's not the first time that's happened in the UK. It happened in Brighton as well, over 10 years ago now. But the activists caused a lot of damage. They even took hammers. They were called the decommissioners. And they took hammers to a similar type of factory, making electronic components that dropped. They weren't drones, but they were components that helped drop the bombs in fighter jets. And all of those got off. I actually attended that trial. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. I'm amazed. the activists in the first trial, this group had chained themselves to the gates of the Elbit subsidiary UAV engines in Shenstone and splattered the building with blood red paint in January last year. And here's a picture of Evict Elbit. The three activists cleared the second trial on Thursday had taken action to shut down Vine properties in July last year, quote, as part of a wider campaign targeting the suppliers, partners, and landlords of Elbit, the group said in a statement. Vine is the landlord of the Shenstone factory. Activists chained the gate shut, occupied the roof, and sprayed the walls with red paint to signify its complicity in the murder of the Palestinian people, they recall. They dropped a large sign calling on the landlords to evict Elbit. Palestinian Action said that the legal victory was hugely significant and was much more proof that even the British court system appears to understand the necessity and proportionality of taking action to undermine British complicity in Israeli war crimes. Activists said on Thursday that the Crown Prosecution Service had failed to offer any evidence, leading to the charges being dropped before the political defense of proportionate action against Israeli war crimes could be put forward in court again. Palestinian Action said in its statement that there had been serious failings by the police and an abuse of process by prosecutors. Their solicitor, Lydia D'Agostino, told the Electronic Intifada that there had been major failings in disclosure by prosecutors, leading to the activists walking free. So this is pretty good news to start out the year. We've had actually, this month, we've had a number of win-wins regarding Palestine. So we're holding our breath, but feeling hopeful that this year is going to be a good year. However, the situation of Palestine refugees is still horrible, and there was a huge storm in Lebanon this week. All of Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, all got huge rainstorms with floods, and the refugee situation is desperate in the refugee camps. And I'm sure that Frank is aware of it. He's not in the camps themselves. I think he's still in California, but he's in touch with them. I can't connect to the other links, because they're covered by this, whatever this blue streak is. I have no clue what it is. I'm going to shut down my computer and restart it. That usually solves, computer problems afterwards. But anyhow, but those were two hopeful articles that we can hope that this year will bring some change. I wanted to go to the prison demonstration today out in Brooklyn, but it's so cold and I'm still getting over this flu or whatever it is I had. I tested negative for COVID, but it was just one of these home tests and they're often not reliable. So I'm feeling better, finally no fever, no sore throat, but I'm afraid to go out in the really stand for a couple hours out in the cold. Besides, Bay Ridge is like really a long trip away for me to get there. It's on the other side of Brooklyn. So, but I'm going to see if there's anything on YouTube that I can find where people recording. But the fact that this is going to be a big demonstration in the middle of this cold wave is very encouraging. I'm getting notices about it all day long, so I'm happy about that. So what we're going to look at today, and then discuss it, and read poetry. I don't know, maybe Farid, would you prefer to read your poetry before the film or after the film? Hi, Mohammed. Welcome. Coming on. What would you prefer? Maybe we can do both. How about read something to introduce us to the film, and then we can read more afterwards.
I'd rather read it after, but and I also want to talk about my uncle who was in the jails for 12 years.
Yeah, we want to hear that story. Okay, so let's get into the film. And it's a very moving film, but it's also a little provocative. Hey, Richard. Hi, Richard from Lebanon. I heard you had terrible weather up there. You survived?
No.
Yeah, you're okay though. You have electricity, you have your internet.
Electricity, you're funny.
So how was the storm for you up with the Druids in the woods?
What storm? We had 2 inches of snow. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Oh, snow. I thought it was rain. Okay. All right. So
No big deal compared to Canada.
oh, right. You're from Canada, so you're right. You're pretty,
2 inches of
everybody
snow.
else in Italy is freaking out, but right. Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad you're safe and warm. So it's good. In Jordan, they just had rain. They had a little snow, but mostly warm. Okay, let's start to look at our film. And we have a few more people coming on Facebook, which is good. So and let me know if you are indeed seeing it. So let's go.
Time to turn talk into action.
We're gonna have an
Step
ad, of
one,
course.
find
at the beginning.
BetMGM Sportsbook. Step 2, make
Okay. Beersheba prison. I've been to Beersheba. It's a weird place.
It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the inmates of Beersheba prison are being counted for the 5th time today. They're all Palestinians, prisoners in Israel's highest security jail. Those held here are regarded by Israel as the most dangerous terrorists in their custody, men with blood on their hands. They describe themselves as freedom fighters and now prisoners of war. For both sides, it's a daily battle of wits and words. Locked up together for 24 hours a day, guards and inmates are forced into a complex, surprising dialogue, unlike any other between Israelis and Palestinians.
I don't hate them. They define me as their enemy. They are defined as the enemy. Maybe tomorrow we'll make peace.
For the first time, Israel's prison service has allowed cameras unrestricted access behind their bars.
אני חושב שהעוצמה שלנו, או שכל גוף שרוצה שיהיה לו עוצמה, הוא צריך קודם כל להיות מוסרי וערכי. אם אתה לא מוסרי וערכי, אתה מאבד שליטה. ולכן...
An Israeli officer and a convicted terrorist kill time. Both have lots of it.
הרי אין בפעולת התאבדות מוסרית, משהו מוסרי. כי יש שם ילדים וזקנים, אתה לא בוחר בכפידה, זה לא חיילים, זה לא לחימה בתוך שטח. אז איפה נגמר המוסר? איפה הוא מתחיל? זו הבעיה. אתה לא יודע איפה הוא מתחיל ואיפה הוא נגמר.
שאנשים מתחיל... אני אגיד לך, מהיום, לא מהיום, משנים אמרנו, בואו נפסיק את כל זה, נתנו לפלסטינים.
רגע, זה לא מוסרי, פיגועי התאבדות. זה מוסרי או לא?
פיגועי התאבדות זה חלק מההתאבדות, הם מתאבדים על הכיבוש. עכשיו הבעיה, אני חושב, אין כיבוש, הכיבוש משחית גם מהצד הכובש וגם מהצד הנכבש.
In the past, these two men would only have come eye to eye at the end of a rifle sight. Now, they're offered a unique chance to learn about each other at close quarters.
אבל מישהי, ויכוח, השעון אומר לא, אנחנו נפגוע מי שפוגע בנו, ואנחנו אומרים אותו דבר, מי שפוגע בנו, נפגוע בנו.
אבל יש שינוי עכשיו, אני חושב. גם מבחינת אווירה, גם מבחינת...
אף אחד לא רוצה לראות...
Outside the prison walls, the momentum towards peace and the creation of an independent Palestinian state gathers pace. But inside Israeli jails, there are still 10,000 prisoners accused of crimes against Israel. Since the beginning of the Second Intifada 4.5 years ago, the number held by the prison service has increased by over 7 times. The main wings of Beersheba house 8 men to every cell. For up to 4 hours a day, they're allowed outside. For the rest of the time, they live in a 15 by 24-foot space. They have to get on.
صغرها يا زلمه اسمعني بالتحليق الله يسامحك والله طلعت هيك مش عارف طلعت هيك خربت يا زلمه الله يسامحك اذا بزور لنا النسوان بتكلم
If the prisoners behave, they're granted certain privileges by the administration. They've 10 channels of TV. They're allowed to study Hebrew Open University courses and can buy and cook their own food. Everything in these cells is bought with funds sent in by Palestinian political factions like Fatah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad. For them, it's a means of retaining loyalty. This is Ali Muslimani, a veteran of the Fatah party. Aged 47, he spent nearly half his life in prison. Like many Palestinians, he has family members who are also in jail. A year ago, he was reunited with his son, Allah.
It's very difficult for a father to see his son in prison. You wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. Prison is all about brutality. It's a hard, tough life. If it was your son, how would you feel? You'd want the best for him. I want him to have a normal life. It was a shock for me to see him here, but it was also a pleasant surprise, because then I could be with him. I am prisoner Ali Badr al-Muslimani, born in Jerusalem. I am sentenced to life imprisonment for struggling against the occupation and forming a group to fight the occupying army and settlers.
Ali is serving his second sentence, this time life, for the killing of an Israeli woman. Having tried to escape twice, he's regarded as a high-risk prisoner. Today, the guards have locked up an extra prisoner in the cell. But there aren't enough beds, so he has to sleep on a damp floor. Ali leads the negotiation.
شفتوا كلها بياخد؟ كان يشفتوه בסוף ישפטו, אתם עוד תראו, לא האמנתם שיהיה שפיטת רעב בהתחלה, כפי שהייתה, לא האמנתם. אבל עוד תאמינו, שתהיה עוד פעם. זה מתגלגל, מגיע עד נקודת השבר.
When negotiations break down, the threat of going on hunger strike is the prisoners' main weapon. But the guards can bargain with privileges, granting or withholding them at will.
The reality of prison life is very different in terms of our struggle. Outside, resistance means guns and rifles. But in here, it's about dialogue and negotiation, about determination and principles. In prison, we believe our problems can only be solved through dialogue.
Despite the differences between guards and prisoners, dialogue does result in give and take. On this occasion, Ali's cellmates are given the tools to repair the damp floor.
جبنا عن طريق الإدارة الشمامة وفردوا لنا إياه على الأرض وهسه الحين قاعدين عملية بننظف وبنعمل تشطيب.
The Palestinian prisoners not only have to find compromises with the Israelis. Most of the men in Beersheba are from Fatah, the majority nationalist party. Alongside them are militant fundamentalists from Hamas and Islamic Jihad.
وكيف كانت مناجاتنا لله وهنا أقول
Outside, these factions are bitterly divided about whether to negotiate with the Israelis at all. But here, they present a united front to the administration.
فلا يغترن أحد بمنصبه مهما علا لا يغترن أحد بجاهه مهما كان ولا يغترن أحد بسجنه ولا يغترن أحد بشيء فالموت قريب من الجميع يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه فإذا أحببته
At Friday prayers, the guards are especially vigilant. While freedom to worship is a right for all prisoners and helps maintain order, the guards will draw the line if the sermon becomes overtly political.
When you live in the prison, it's something like you live in the different world. I mean, I know that these guys, they murder and they bomb bus and they murder children and women. You just have to put it away from your mind, because if you think about it, it's impossible to work. We try not to get close to a difficult subject like the situation in Israel and the fight between the Arabs and the Israelis. This is taboo. So we try to talk about something else. I mean, children, how to raise children, what's going on with the women those days, and how they trade. I mean, everything, every other subject, not about the hot subject.
And there is no need for this, but what to do?
For recently recruited guards and new prisoners, this is the first time they've come face to face with the enemy. A devout Jew, Rafi Haddad joined the prison service 6 months ago.
When I took a job and talk about the friend and family, and asked me, what do you think you're doing? I mean, it's dangerous, you have a wife, you have children. Don't you have a life? Here, I'm one guard, around me something like 30, 40 people. They are already from the Hamas, from the Jihad Islami, everything. They kill people, they murder, they bomb, everything. So let's hope that they know what they're doing and they're not going to do something stupid. Stupid for them, very harmless for me.
For new guards like Rafi, the biggest surprise is the number of privileges prisoners are allowed.
Inside a prison, they got everything. Just get everything here. We care about blankets, we care about clothes, we care about shoes, we care about if they go to travel, to visit, doctor, dentist, everything. They don't have it outside. It just most of them don't have it. Almost all of them got no money, got nothing. Economic down. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Prisoners also arrive with their own prejudices about the enemy. Hussam Shaheen was a member of the military wing of Fatah and is accused of distributing weapons illegally and planning attacks on Israeli buses. He's yet to be convicted.
I have been here since here, and I have two friends here. He's in prison since 17 years, and he also here since 17 years in the prison. And my friend there since 4 years. I'm just for 1 year inside this prison, and I don't think so that there is a lot of change happened with the Israeli mentality of facing the Palestinian people. The Israeli mentality is still built on power and strength, and they are using their own power just to fight the Palestinians.
How do you still wage a war of resistance from inside a prison cell?
Smiling. By smiling, and seeing victory. We will win. We will win the game at the end of the day.
When a prisoner arrives, he's still highly motivated. He still has the instincts of a fighter. Most of them don't know the Israelis, just as we don't know them. I must admit, I didn't know the Palestinian side before I came here. In prison, they start to get to know us as Israelis, our culture, our language, our limits, the things that we as Israelis are willing to accept and what we're not. There's always a battle of wits between the prison service and the prisoners. Both sides try and test the other's limits.
Dr. Yuval Bitar has worked at Beersheba for 9 years as the prison dentist. Between appointments, he does what he can to resolve any disputes that arise.
These men weren't born murderers. These are people who did what they did, and then when you meet them in prison, you can't connect them to the crime. Of course, they have their justifications and we have ours. But it's very difficult for me to connect the actions to the individuals because they seem so normal.
Israeli courts sentence on the basis of a life for a life. At Beersheba, many of the 1,200 Palestinian prisoners are serving multiple life sentences. Among them is an Israelis regard as their most dangerous prisoner. He's kept in isolation 24 hours a day.
First time I didn't know anything what he did and what his punishment was, but after that, I read the paper and I saw how big, how very important, a very smart guy he was. And I said, those kind of guys was in the Holocaust. The same guys who kill people without understand what they're doing, when no mercy, they didn't think about anything. As the same.
Abdullah Barghouti was recently given the longest sentence ever handed out by an Israeli court. 67 life sentences. As the chief bomb maker for the military wing of Hamas, he's responsible for numerous devastating attacks on Israeli soil. His targets included a cafe, a restaurant, and a nightclub.
Good afternoon.
Abdullah Barghouti is held responsible for the deaths of 67 and the wounding of over 500 people.
They are more bad than Nazi. They learn from Nazi in Germany. They are start to destroy us. Thief the land, thief the everything. And what we respect from us. What we do, it is nothing. They kill more than 3,000 Palestinians. What we kill, 1,000? This is nothing. I'm not look like Gandhi. I didn't care about the shit they call it Gandhi. Here, we don't care about what they say. We care about what happened for us. They destroy us.
we must destroy him more because they start. The Holy Quran, he says, who start to destroy you, you should destroy him. To make him nothing. Look, we are around in circle, in the same circle. We fight and they fight. We fight and they fight. There is difficult way to fight. There is a gun, there is the politica. It's, they're taken for the two way, but there is one, we call him the highway. It's the fighting way. The bombing way is the highway. This experience, it's good for me. I know I will get freedom soon. Maybe not today. After today, I will get the freedom. And I will be one of the big political men in Palestine. When we decide to go outside, we will go. It's easy. Easy more than that. We will come outside. I will see my children, my family, and I spend all my life in the beach swimming. I know that and believe that. And you will see, you will come to visit me again when I was in Ramallah, sitting in my jacuzzi.
Just like outside the prison, there are a few hardliners who reject any dialogue with the enemy. But in here, they can be isolated. A former submarine officer, Commander Ben Gal, is in charge of a very different prison to Beersheba. He runs one of Israel's only 2 women's prisons at Hasharon. 61 women are imprisoned here, all accused of crimes against Israel. They range from failed suicide bombers to those who supplied weapons or prepared explosives. Maintaining a dialogue between these Muslim women and the predominantly male guards creates a unique challenge for both sides. Cultural sensibilities can be easily offended. The Israelis do allow children born in prison to stay with their mothers until they're 2 years old.
Some of them are mothers, some are unmarried, and some have husbands at home. It all influences their behavior. Women and young people are unpredictable. Emotion comes before logic. We never forget they are girls and women. But yes, they're also terrorists and murderers.
كيف حالكم اليوم؟ مش تمام معكم؟ النفسية كيف؟ المعنوية؟ 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 طيب خلينا نكمل الدعاية الانتخابية اللي بلشناها امبارح زي ما انتم عارفين بكره.
As in all Israeli jails, the prisoners are allowed to elect a representative to speak on their behalf. Currently, the position is held by Amna Muna.
قدر من عند طبعا مهم نعرف انه هون الانتخابات هي مش عباره عن مناصب ولا كراسي هي بس لخدمه الاسيرات هون بتمنى التوفيق للكل تفضل يا عريض
أكثر مما كأني قائدة. To the girls, I'm more than their leader. I'm a friend to them, like a sister. On top of that, I help them in humanitarian and social matters.
My name is Amna Jawad Muna. I received a life sentence in prison for kidnapping and killing Israeli young man. His name is Ra'ufir Rahum.
Former journalist Amna Muna is one of the most notorious prisoners in Israeli custody. Using an internet chat room, she lured a 16-year-old boy on a date where he was shot dead by 2 of her accomplices.
I didn't intend that anyone should be killed. Killing another human being is very, very difficult. It's God who decides who lives and dies. And I don't think he chose me to carry out this act. I took a decision a long time ago not to regret anything so I could get on with my life. I don't have any remorse over what happened.
We know Amna is no angel. I never forget she's a murderer and she terrifies the other prisoners. When Amna was on another wing, she used violence. If you go over to wing 12, you can meet prisoners who had hot oil thrown over them by her. They'll gladly show you their scars. We're talking about a murderer who...
There's never been a better time to upgrade your dentures. We do anything to make you smile. Book today.
Who's continuing in the same vein. Killers don't change their ways.
In 2 months' time, I'll have been in prison for 4 years. Prison has taught me many things. I understand my enemy much better now. I have never had such direct contact with Jews or Israelis before.
It's the day of the elections. As well as choosing a representative, the women are also electing committee members in charge of everything from physical fitness to intelligence. With only a short history of free elections in Palestinian society, this is a precious opportunity for the women to exercise free will.
Throughout the historic struggles of the Palestinian people, democracy has always started in prison. In a small way, we as prisoners are setting an example, which is what our people need right now.
Don't ever forget that prison is a totalitarian regime. In all their dealings with the guards, they must operate within the rules we set. Any breach of this is considered a violation of discipline. Even though a representative is elected by the prisoners, I have the final say as to who it is.
Amna wins comfortably. Her position is now unchallenged. It's a rare chance for the women to let off steam.
I can see from their faces, the looks they give us, that they're not too happy about what's happening here. Right now, I can't control the girls' reactions. They've asked me several times to tone down what we're saying. Their basic goal is to control us, but they won't succeed as long as we stick together. The administration is watching us all the time. If it's not the officers, then it's the guards.
As long as the officers agree to deal with her, Amna's negotiating skills will set the tone of the dialogue between guards and prisoners. The next few days will determine whether she's an asset or a liability. Deep within the vast Beersheba prison complex lies Eshel, the maximum security wing, where the most disruptive and dangerous prisoners are locked up. These are the men who planned the suicide bombings, rocket attacks and shootings that have claimed hundreds of Israeli lives. Most are serving multiple life sentences. With nothing to lose, all are still regarded as a serious threat to Israel's security.
The ones we get here on Wing 4 are troublemakers. They are more of a problem than prisoners in other jails. This is a secure wing, where the senior leaders are gathered. The sort of people who plan terrorist actions outside, from within the prison's walls, whether by telephone, or by letters, or smuggled messages. I have to be very vigilant for reasons of security, and also in the psychological war. Since they are leaders and mature prisoners, there are lots of things happening beneath the surface. I and the guards who work here have to be aware of everything that's going on.
My name is Gilad Cohen, and I'm 36 years old. I'm working here about 6 years, but here in this section 3 years. So I know it from the beginning. There is a war inside. Although it's quiet, an underground intelligence war, but it's still war. They are very, very dangerous. Although they seems like not dangerous, but they are very dangerous, very clever. We are working, as you see, without guns, very close to them. They are almost free inside the section. 15 seconds, or maybe less, I can be in their cells, hijacked. Not long ago, manager of Nafcha jail been almost killed, almost assassinated, knife in his stomach, almost dead. No, this is the situation here.
In the corridors of Eshel, confrontation is kept at bay as long as guards and prisoners maintain a respectful dialogue.
אני אומר, פשוט עליך, צריך לשים במקום 4 עיניים, 8 עיניים, 10 עיניים, כמה שיש. למה? טוב, לא חשוב. בסדר, בסך הכל, אתה יודע, חיים בשלום.
איזה שלום?
לא?
בוא, כן, אבל בחוץ זה עניין אחר.
בחוץ משהו אחר.
I am Muhammad Mustafa Abu Jalale from Jabalia camp, Gaza Strip. I have been in jail since the beginning of 1991, 10th of March. They convicted me for murder Israelis and fighting the occupation, and I spent between 8 to 9 years in isolation sections till now.
In 1990, soon after Mohammed al-Jalala had graduated from nursing college, Israeli police and Palestinian rioters clashed in Old Jerusalem. Jews describe the incident as the Temple Mount riots. Arabs call it the Al-Aqsa massacre. 17 Palestinians were shot dead and over 100 were wounded, among them women and children. Mohammed was called to treat the injured.
I swear at that moment to revenge all this bloodshed. Me as a staff nurse, as a nurse, I have educated to give life, to promote life, to maintain the level of the health of all the people, in spite of their race and nations. But I went to Jerusalem and I stabbed 4 and injured 8.
Mohammed's act of vengeance claimed the lives of 4 women, all of them civilians.
They call themselves prisoner of war. I don't see any war. It's just a terrorist act against citizens. When they hit soldiers, I have nothing to do. I cannot say anything about that. But when they come, go on bus and suicide bomb inside the bus, inside the halls. I will never understand that.
عادة أنا بقرأ القدس من الآخر، ما بقراش من الأول لأنه الأخبار الأولانية كلها قديمة. لما تيجي أفتح صفحة الأول we need يعني all the news.
Muhammad is a member of the fundamentalist movement, Islamic Jihad. After 14 years in the custody of Israelis, he's learned that violence is not the only way forward.
There is two types of struggle here in prison, the positive and the negative. The positive is attacking guards and taking our rights by force. And this is not suitable for us. We refuse it. We prefer the negative style because I'm the prisoner and he's the jailer. He has the strength. He's stronger than me. He has the guards. He has the money. He has everything. And I'm here just to have my mind and my soul. That's it.
The prisoners are highly organized and impose a strict discipline in their ranks. Islamic rules prohibiting drug abuse and homosexuality are enforced, and fighting between prisoners is outlawed.
Any mature person have to control his behavior. And we develop ways to control our emotions. Sometimes maybe I feel frustrated and feel pressure, high pressure. I can release this pressure by many ways, not by shouting on my friend, no. We have rules. If you release pressure in your brother or in your colleague or in your friend and you harm him, you will receive hard punishment.
These are the rules of prison life, and most of the time they're respected. But when prisoners abandon them, the guards are quick to step in. A week after the elections at Hasharon Women's Prison, there's been a near riot. The guards resolved it by turning the fire hoses onto the prisoners.
انت متوقع انه تضرب هذا الضرب هيك يرميه على الارض ويضرب هذا الضرب البنات يسكتوا متوقع بنت تنضرب فينا والبنات يسكتوا
أمني منى لابسي
Amna Muna is accused of starting the disturbance. Having spent 18 hours handcuffed to the bed, she's now summoned to a prison trial. Commander Ben Gal will act as judge and jury.
كيف باش لك لاقين؟
لا صرفت العمود للسفيرة.
لا صرفت العمود للسفيرة؟ العيف.
أنا تنقلت لهادي بوش ولا كبتين.
الحمادة للسفيرة كشان نروح العمود للسفيرة.
أنا ما ترسل العمود أبى أخرج و.
لا أترسل العمود إن شاء الله تخشي لا كشان نروح العمود للسفيرة. أمادة للسفيرة؟
هي أمرت له شنو يرسل العمود.
لا أمادة شو أمر لك العمود.
شنو يرسل العمود لا ما تشيل له
ليش بديك شنو يرسل العمود ليش بديك شنو يوميدك سمرت لا أمادة
معتمد أني عمدت للسفيرة لا صرفتي
إم لا أمادة أمرت له أني عمود خاركة للسفيرة العمود
أنا لا صرفتي أني أمرت له شنو يرسل العمود للسفيرة
רוצה עוד להגיד משהו?
כן. נכון שאתמול היה בעיה ואתם נכנסתם לאגף והרבצתם לבנות והשתמשתם בגז מדמע ובמים ועוד כמה דברים. אבל גם אתם הרבצתם לי וזה צריך לשבור את הכבוד, אבל אני מצדי לא רוצה לשבור את הכבוד. רוצים להמשיך כמו שהיינו כל הזמן. אני לא יודעת, אני שמעתי.
מעלש, מים זה בריא, זה מזל.
גם שפו עליי מים והרביצו לי, אבל זה קורה כל הזמן.
אני רוצה את החשיבה, מה זה שסירבת לעמוד לספירה כשנדרשת לעמוד ולא אחר כך. תהי בצינוק 14 יום. תודה רבה. חזרה לצינוק. אין צורך לגבול אותה, אפשר לשאול אותה חופשייה. אני מחזיר אותה בתלית הפיקוח בלי כבילה. מה שהתפתח בעצם אנחנו...
We actually anticipated what happened. After she'd been re-elected to the leadership, we expected some sort of confrontation when she would show off her status and power. It could have been directed at the prisoners or the staff.
Amna's position as the newly elected representative is already in jeopardy. Now she has time to consider how to repair the fragile peace.
The situation is very complicated. It seems they've been waiting to do this for a long time. The way to solve the problem is not through force or any protest from us. It's only through dialogue.
On some days, Israelis and Palestinians end up in stalemate. On others, the hope that dialogue can advance their cause sustains them. The elected representative of the maximum security prisoners at Eshel is Abdul Nasser Issa. His job is to win the small privileges that can make all the difference when you're locked up in these two-man cells.
My name is Abdul Nasser Issa. I was sentenced 10 years ago to 2 life sentences and 7 years. The charges against me were for attacking Israeli targets.
Now aged 36, Issa was arrested while preparing to blow up an Israeli train. He was convicted of planning suicide bombings on 2 Israeli buses. 9 passengers died and 130 were injured. Issa's had little contact with his family since he was jailed over a decade ago.
Of course, separation is difficult, especially when you look at those you love most. Your father, your mother, your brothers and close friends. It makes prison that much harder. Now, some of them I will never see again, because God have mercy on them. They are martyrs.
Despite his imprisonment, Issa maintains the family tradition of resisting the occupation. 3 years ago, he was convicted for coordinating the kidnapping of Israeli soldiers from his prison cell.
As prisoners, we always try to work out the best ways to cope with our situation. It's complicated by the fact that the guards undoubtedly served as Israeli soldiers in Hebron, Nablus, Gaza, and all the Palestinian territories. They may well have participated in operations which harmed my people. But we do our best to ignore this, so we can live as normal a life as possible.
To qualify as a guard in Israel's prison service, you have to have combat experience. Many of the officers, like Chaim Weitzman, have fought in the Palestinian territories.
מגיל 17
From about the age of 17, I felt a need to help protect the
לעבוד
state.
בעבודה ביטחונית, אם זה 3 שנים ששירתתי בצנחנים.
I served for 3 years in the paratroopers, and immediately afterwards I applied for a job in the prison service.
בגוף ביטחוני,
I was attracted to it because it's a security
מאוד אוהב
service,
את האדמה, מאוד אוהב את ישראל.
and because I love the land very much. I love Israel.
כי בכך אני מרגיש שאני תורם.
This is my way of contributing to the continued existence of the state.
להמשך הקיום שלה. לא הרבה...
People may not want to hear this, but really it's a game of war in which they have the edge.
שהם טיפה מעליהם.
We're always on the defensive to prevent them smuggling in mobile phones and planning terrorist attacks outside.
שלא יחדירו פלאפונים, שלא יוציאו פיגועים. להם יש את הזמן לחשוב.
They've got 24 hours a day to think.
24 שעות.
Twice a week, Weitzman, the wing officer, gets together with Issa, the prisoner's representative.
ברוך השם בסדר, מה אני...
עזוב, מה אתה מתמקד רגע?
יש לי כמה דברים,
קודם כל תגיד בוקר טוב, אתה ישר קופץ ל...
מחכה לך כמה זמן.
נראה הבוקר לחוץ. אתה?
לא.
איפה חיוך, קצת מתח, שירד. דרך אגב, ראיתי את התמונה שלו באיזה עיתון. איך הגעת לעיתון אתה?
חסן יוסף.
ראיתי אותה באיזה עיתון, ככה עיתון, כמו תמונות מחזור.
של מי?
עיתון בערבית, מאיפה אני יודע
תמונה של מי?
שלך.
אני עדיין לא יודע. תן לי להתקשר.
לא, תוציא מהסליקים. את הטלפון לווייני.
הבלפונים עכשיו אין לנו בלפונים.
מה אתה אומר? אין לכם?
בסדר, אין בעיה.
לפי דעתי, האירועים
Nothing happens spontaneously here. Everything is planned.
אני צריך לחשוב מה...
I have to think what is behind even the most innocent request from him. It's a psychological war. It may seem harmless, but it's never as simple as that. There's always something behind it.
יש בעייתיות. שישתדלו להכניס כריכה רכה.
לפעמים ספרי הקוראן, אתה לא יכול...
יש קוראן וכריכה רכה.
לא, אין.
יש.
בדרך כלל, יותר מ-90%...
הספרים הקטנים שמכניסים.
הקטנים, נכון, אבל הגדולים, אתה מכניסים.
עם כריכה קשה יש בעיה.
אתה יכול לבדוק עם זה, עם המשקף.
אני יכול לדעת מה, איזה מסר כתוב יש בפנים?
אין מסר.
מה אין מסר? אני אומר לך, יש בזה בעיה. אני כבר דיברתי איתו על זה גם.
אמר, תבדוק,
דיברתי איתו על זה, זה לא כל כך פשוט. אבל
לקדוש הספר, זה גם...
אבל תרשי בהסכמתם.
לא, בגלל שאי אפשר.
אני הייתי בביקורים כמה פעמים, אמרתי לגברת, את רוצה להכניס את הספר, בתנאי שנתלוש את הכריכה,
למה מסכימים?
היא הסכימה.
למה מסכימים? בגלל שאי אפשר להכניס ללא הסכמתם. אם הם לא מסכימים, אי אפשר להכניס לספרים. שלא לתלוש, תמיד זה מקלקל את ה...
אני לא יודע, אין בעיה, אני יכול לפתוח את הכריכה עם סכין, ואחרי זה תדביקו את זה, אתם.
תביא לי מה להדביק, אין לנו גם חומר הדבקה. אם אתה מאשר לחומר הדבקה, בסדר.
כך.
לא, תודה.
אז יכול להיות שנעביר אותו היום, את החבר שלך לאגף...
15.
איזה אגף?
15,
איזה אגף אתה רוצה?
אתה קובע, אני לא קובע.
איזה אגף אתה רוצה, תגיד לי?
10, יאללה.
10? כן. קיבלת. רק זו ההוראה שקיבלתי, 10. ראית איך אנחנו פולעים? על אותו גל. בסדר, זה משחק פנימי, אפשר לשנות מרגע לרגע. ברגע שהוא יוצא לדלת, אני יכול להגיד לו גם 11. בינתיים שיכינו את כל האשגרים ל10.
אל תדע.
אני תמיד אומר לו את זה בפנים, שאני...
I always tell him to his face, Issa, I trust you, but I'll keep my eyes wide open. So he knows I don't really trust him at all.
שידע.
Everything he tells me, I have to check and check and check again.
הוא הולך לבדיקה, 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 לבדיקה.
Trust doesn't come into it. I really hope he moves to another prison soon.
The morning after Amna's trial, there's a surprise for her and the women at Hasharon. The prison service has transferred 30 women from another prison here. All the women at Hasharon have been secular nationalists from the Fatah party. These new arrivals are religious fundamentalists from Hamas and Islamic Jihad. The groups have a history of bitter rivalry. The last time they were housed in the same wing, violence erupted.
When we prisoners disagree amongst ourselves, we're distracted from demanding our rights, and the officers get their own way. In the end, that's what they want.
Amna's still in solitary and powerless to influence events.
Both Amna's group and the new group have gained too much power and unity. By mixing them up, we'll bring them together. There'll be an exchange of opinions between groups. Perhaps it's in the spirit of democracy, and we're helping them to make democratic decisions. I might even be declared a national hero by the Palestinians, because I have helped create peace between the factions.
As the first of the new arrivals is escorted onto the wing, the guards prepare for trouble. Once the Hamas prisoner is told she'll be housed with Fatah women on the same wing, she refuses to enter. For the second time in 48 hours, the guards prepare to turn the fire hoses onto the women. After an hour of negotiation and threatened with a soaking, the Hamas and Islamic Jihad women are finally persuaded to enter the cells.
I'm sure there will be tension between the factions about money, about the food they buy, about who will be the representative on the wing. It's a healthy tension that serves my interests, and certainly in the future it'll serve other interests.
For now, the hoses are put away. In the meantime, Amna Muna has been listening to the confrontation. News of the transfer hasn't improved her already jaded view of the administration.
Gradually, during my time in prison, my view of Israelis had improved. But right now, I feel it's going backwards. I don't want to say I feel hate, but it's certainly distaste. When I look at Israelis now, all the positive things have disappeared. The evil face has returned.
Despite having been recently elected, Amna will now face a challenge for leadership from the other factions. But for the next 12 days, she'll be alone to contemplate her future and a lifetime of imprisonment.
באולפן עדי תלמור עם יומן הצהריים ובראשו הכותרות. נמסרו לפרסום עד כה שמותיהם של 4 מ-5 חללי הפיגוע אמש במוצב צה"ל ברפיח. 5 מפצועי הפיגוע עודם מאושפזים במצב קשה בבית החולים סורוקה בבאר שבע.
At Eshel, it's business as usual. Issa is still negotiating on behalf of the prisoners. Today, he takes the opportunity to raise a personal matter. He's relying on the dentist, Farid Bitar, to press his case.
אבל אימא שלו משותקת ידיים רגליים כבר
לא,
שנה.
בסדר,
הוא לא
זהו.
ביקר אותה 4 שנים.
לא, אנחנו...
אבל
יש לנו
שלא יהיה על
כמה
חשבון
קשקוש
של מישהו
טלפון.
אחר. שלא יהיה על חשבון מישהו אחר. תדבר איתך.
With Yuval's help, Isa wins a rare concession, a phone call home.
יכול להיות שבאמת הודיע, כאילו זה לא...
אני לא יודע, תאמין לי.
אתה איך אומר לך כתמר?
4 שנים. 4 שנים.
יכול להיות שהם עברו דירה, אתה לא יודע. עברו דירה ואתה לא יודע.
والله אני תאמין לי לא יודע.
זה מצחיק.
מרחבה, שלום.
Isa's been told he'll have just 10 minutes on the phone.
אהלן? השיחה תתבצע על הבית, אתה לא אומר דברי הסתה או דברי הקצנה, רק שיחות שלום שלום עם המשפחה, במידה ויהיו דברי הסתה או הקצנה, השיחה תנותק. בסדר? בסדר.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله، كيف الحال؟ مين بيحكي فرح؟
دحيمة.
مين؟
دحيمة.
مين عندك؟ مين عندك من الكبار؟
فرح.
مين عندك من الكبار من الكبار؟ ستك عندك؟ ستك أمك.
ريحة.
هاتي.
أم عبد الناصر.
السلام عليكم.
ألو.
كيف حالك أمه؟
الله يرضى عليك.
كيف صحتك؟
يهديك ربي الله ينشفك.
هاي سمحوا لنا بالآخر بعد 4 سنين سمحوا لنا نتصل من عند الإدارة.
طيب يا أم الله.
كيف صحتك إن شاء الله بخير؟
الله ينشلك يا رب.
عمر شو أخباره عمر؟
وعمر منيح كلهم بخير.
عمر بقى ما روحش من السجن؟
يعني قريب بروح إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله الله كريم الله كريم.
هذا أبوك كده.
طيب يلا كويس منيح، المهم صحتك كويسة يا أمه وبخير ومنيحة. الله يعطيك الصحة
الله يرضى
والعافية.
عليك الله يحميك.
ادعي لنا دائما ادعي لنا.
أبوك هذا هي يا أم الله يرضى عليك.
الله يبارك فيك بخير
مع
أمه.
أبوك يا أم.
الله يبارك فيك يا أمه.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام، كيف حالك يا أبا؟
والله 100,000 مرحبا.
والله أول مرة هي بيسمحوا لنا بحكي من عند الإدارة من ملكة الإدارة.
الله عليك الله عليك.
كيف صحتكم؟
طيب والله منيح وجهك شارة.
لا مش كم مرة، مش باستمرار، هاي مرة واحدة حكينا لهم صرنا زمان مش حاكين مع الأهل، الوالدة مريضة، الوالد كبير. ضايل معي دقيقة واحدة.
طيب.
ادعوا لنا دائما
الله
بالخير.
يرضى عليك.
إن شاء الله فرصة سعيدة. مع ألف سلامة يا أبا. مع السلامة.
دير بالك على حالك.
مع السلامة مع السلامة.
الله معك.
הכי חשוב, שמחת לדבר עם האמא ואבא?
כן.
לפני 3 חודשים מצאנו אותו בתת טלפון, זאת אומרת שהוא כן דיבר.
לא, באמת הם טוענים את זה, אבל זה... אני אומר לא.
הטלפון היה שם יותר משנה, זאת אומרת שנה שלמה היה לו טלפון.
בתא של
בתא
איסה?
שלו שהוא דיבר חופשי במשך שנה. אז אתה יודע, שלא יעבדו עליך.
עליי לא, מה, אני לא חוקר אותו, אני רק מדבר איתו. אנחנו לא חוקרים.
אומרים שיש פלאפונים, אבל זה לא נכון. יש, אומרים שמצאו פלאפונים עם האנשים, אבל זה לא בסדר, לא נכון.
לא.
כן.
In prison, Israelis and Palestinians maintain a dialogue born of necessity. It often falters and frequently breaks down. But most of the time, they do achieve conciliation. Outside the prison, the leaders of both sides try and do the same. Among the new Palestinian leadership are men who spent time within these very walls, where they learned the craft of negotiating with the enemy. Some of Beersheva's current inmates could be the next generation of leaders, if they're ever released.
Once they've completed their sentences in an Israeli prison, they look at things over the perspective of time. On occasion, having met people like me and others, they'll come out and understand hatred doesn't lead anywhere. As they get to know us, it provides them with better tools to handle negotiations with Israelis and arrive at a solution. Maybe tomorrow we'll find peace.
10 سنوات الاعتقال كانت فرصة يعني
10 years of detention gives you a real chance to develop yourself, your ideas, your points of view. If you didn't change for the better, you'd hardly be normal.
لا يتغير بالإيجاب وليس إنسان طبيعي.
10 years inside has had its effect on building up my ideas and opinions. And that's true for many of my brothers, the political prisoners in the jails of the occupation.
Palestinian prisoners are being discussed in the ongoing peace talks, but neither Hamas nor Islamic Jihad have agreed to take part.
Have your say on tonight's show and explore a world of extra information, news stories and features.
Wow. That was amazing. What an amazing film. It was long, but it was really worth watching. I think it's hard for me to talk after watching this. Farid, tell us what your experience was with your uncle in prison.
Yo.
Farid?
You talking to me?
Yeah. Okay, do you want to take over and talk about the experience of your uncle in prison and read some poetry? We can absorb. First of all, what did you think of the film?
I mean, I thought it was very painful. I want to bring up the point where, I mean, the Israelis going around killing us all the time, and they should go to jail as well. Our people are in jails. We're freedom fighters. Maybe I fight through my poems, but what is it? Why can't they be held accountable for what they do? Killing a lot of civilians. They've killed a lot of civilians in the Gaza and the West Bank. They've done a lot of stuff, but nobody accounts them. They are murderers and they're terrorists as well. We're not terrorists. We're just freedom fighters. I mean, the guy for 4 years don't speak to his mother and father, and it's very painful for me to watch because it's just one-sided story. The Israelis, a lot of soldiers need to go to jail. They've killed a lot of civilians. A lot of things are wrong, and our leaders are not really helping us. My uncle was in jail. He was tortured 12 years. He came out and died from his illness, the one they inflicted on him. The Israelis are horrible. I mean, they're doing things and nobody is questioning them. It really is not fair. How they treating the prisoners, how the women. Why don't they go and try some of them? Why don't they try Sharon? Why don't they try Netanyahu and all of them? It's painful.
Well, that's what the purpose of Frank's brief to the ICC is exactly what you're saying, that the crimes that are committed under the occupation are against violation of international law, and they should be held responsible. And there are many soldiers who regret what they did. You know, that's why the breaking the silence is so big, because they do have to do things. And I think the parallel about the citizens killing is very interesting, because one of the things that came up was that they were considered more heinous crimes because civilians were killed. However, you have all these Palestinian civilians killed all the time, as well as people like Rachel Corrie, and there's also non-Palestinians who are killed as advocates for Palestine, but they get away with it. The Rachel Corrie's family bought a court case in Israel, and they lost. So you're right. There's no accountability. It's very one-sided, very unfair. But like the prisoners, they have the power. But what's really interesting is the skill of the Palestinians in negotiating under the system, and that they get things that they want because they figured out how to handle the Israelis. I think that's really pretty interesting. Farid, what do you think?
I think, I mean, fairness is fair, and I think a lot of Israelis should be put on trial, like they put us on trial. We're not murderers, we're not terrorists, we're just freedom. I wrote a poem for the hunger prisoners, and we've had few of them. So I'm just going to read a poem. It's called Striker. I am the hunger of days, living on seawater, shackled in my dungeon. My thoughts are persistent, determined to conquer my jailers. Wonder who's over and who's under, deprived basic life under bogus detention. No crime committed. I will never surrender. My demands are simple. Use the phone, get visited, better food, definitely be treated as human. Left behind a wall, behind barbed wire. My behind is on fire. In the searing heat of the Negev desert, way down south, no one knows I exist. I always resist, held in solitary confinement. I am sure my family, the fields, the birds are waiting for me. I'm a prisoner of conscience. You can chain me, torture me, rape me, but you cannot break me. I'm a prisoner of necessity, not choice. I will sacrifice my body till my enemy succumbs to my demands. No more administrative detention. I mean that, Zion. I am Bobby Sands, Ismail Abu Salama, Nelson Mandela, rotting in your jail, kept away, crossed over. I deserve better. I demand that. I dedicate this to my uncle who was in jail for 12 years. I dedicate it to all the prisoners. They are freedom fighters. I don't care who says what. We have a cause. We have a land that's occupied, and we're fighting for it. Whether we're poets, freedom fighters, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what Israel is doing, and they need to be put on trial. That's what I think. Dareen Tatour is another poet who spent some time in jail, and I wrote her a poem, and me and Naomi, to visit her before she got to jail, just for writing a poem. They can curse us, they can do whatever they want to us. Look what they're doing in the movie. They need to be put on trial. That's what I think.
Do you have a poem from Dareen that you can read us?
No, but I have a poem that I dedicated to her.
Okay, why don't you read that and we'll end with that. Thanks. Buddy.
It's called Foot Soldier, dedicated to Dareen Tatour. My words are bullet mowing down snipers at the Eretz crossing, at the barbed fence wire, with smoke obstructing their view. My words flying over my land of 48 and 67 of a long time ago, landing on trees, landing on fields of wheat. My words are detrimental to my enemy. I always speak the truth. Nothing will stop me except a bullet from the IDF. Dedicated to Dareen Tatour. I wish my nation to come. I wish Palestine to be free. And I hope justice will prevail. And I was watching Emmett Till. We're still in this movement, and we need our land back.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Farid. Norvi, I'm glad you joined us. And I just want to thank you, Farid, for reading your poems. They're really very beautiful, very moving. I'm going to end the session. May try get out to Brooklyn. It's just so freaking cold to that demonstration, but maybe if there's something in Manhattan, if you hear about it, buddy, let me know. I know they had some stuff in Jersey. They actually had a letter writing to Palestinian prisoners in Jersey. I'd like to maybe find an address where we could, I could send it out to people where they could send letters to prisoners in Palestine. If you know any way of finding that out, that would be great.
I'll send it.
Yeah, thanks. Samadoun, I know, does a lot of work with prisoners, of course. So peace to all this week. Stay warm and stay safe. And I'll see you next week. We may have a meeting with one of the representatives of the students groups who they tried to throw out of City College because she got them to help pass a resolution supporting BDS at City University, and then AIPAC went after her and they almost threw her out, but she was supported by the student council of the law school at CUNY where she was, and now I think she's in Moscow doing studies. So I'm going to try to contact her and see if we can find out what's going on with the students. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this video about the by Jacqueline Rose on Frontline in England was an interview with Shlomo Sand and another gentleman who wrote two very powerful books, Revisionist History, where they look at the history of Zionism, the history of Israel, and totally turn it upside down on its head. So it was a fabulous interview, and I'd like to share it with you and possibly find some historian to come on a panel to discuss the latest events in history. So have a wonderful week, everybody. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you. Okay, masalama.
Thank you.
Masalama.